What happens when prejudice at 30,000 feet meets power on the ground? A flight attendant, stressed and overworked, sees a young black man in a hoodie sitting in business class. She makes an assumption. She makes a demand. He asks for a second, and in a moment of pure, unbridled rage, she slaps him. But she didn't just slap a passenger. She slapped Marcus Thorne, the only son of self-made tech billionaire Robert Thorne. He makes one call, and in an instant, the system, her entire world, begins to shut down. This isn't just a story about a slap. It's a story about what happens when the silent victims of bias finally get their hands on the switch. JFK International's Terminal 8 was a living organism pulsing with the chaotic energy of 1,000 intersecting timelines. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, a day designed by travel demons to test the limits of human patience. The air was thick with the scent of Cinnabon, jet fuel, and anxiety. In the priority boarding line for American Airlines Flight 100, a direct 707 service to London Heathrow, stood Marcus Thorne. To look at him, you wouldn't see a billionaire's son. You would see a 22-year-old. He was tall, with a lean, athletic build, hidden under a simple, grey soft cotton hoodie. The logo, a small, stylized tree, was for a niche environmental non-profit, not a luxury brand. His jeans were worn, his sneakers were a pair of standard Nike runners, and a pair of Bose QC45 headphones rested around his neck like a familiar hug. He was scrolling through a PDF on climate data, his brow furrowed in concentration. He was in every visible metric unremarkable, and he preferred it that way. Marcus Thorne was not his father. Robert Thorne was a force of nature, a man who had built Thorne Dynamics from a garage concept into a global green energy empire that made Google look sluggish. Robert Thorne moved the world. Marcus just wanted to understand it. He was flying to London to present his graduate thesis at a global climate summit, and he was flying business class, a concession he'd made to his father, who had wanted to send the G650. "I need the signal, Dad," Marcus had argued. "Flying private to a climate conference, I'd be roasted alive before I even landed. I'll be fine in flagship business. It's character building." His father had laughed a deep, rumbling sound. "Your character is built, son. It's the world that needs work. Fine, but you will take the car service." Now, as the line shuffled forward, Marcus felt a familiar vibration. He glanced at his iPhone. "Dad." He smiled and answered, keeping his voice low. "Hey, Dad. I'm boarding right now." "Just wanted to check in." Robert's voice boomed even through the phone's speaker. "You got the presentation, the data on the Arctic ice shelf degradation?" "Yes, Dad. It's solid. Listen, they're calling my group. I'll text you when I'm settled." "All right. Be safe. And Marcus, remember who you are." "I know." Marcus said, a familiar, fond exasperation in his tone. "I love you, Dad. Love you, son. Give 'em hell." Marcus hung up just as he reached the gate agent, who scanned his pass without looking up. "Have a good flight, Mr. Thorne." "You too." Marcus replied, his voice genuine. He knew this was the hard part of her day. He walked down the jet bridge and stepped onto the aircraft. "Welcome," chirped a flight attendant at the door. Marcus nodded and turned right into the quiet, hushed cabin of the flagship business class. He found his seat 4B, a sleek private pod. He stowed his carry-on, settled in, and pulled out his laptop to review his notes one last time. He was in his bubble, focused. He was so focused that he barely noticed Sarah Jenkins. Sarah was the lead flight attendant for the business cabin. She was 48, with 25 years of service at American. Her uniform was crisp. Her blonde hair pulled back in a regulation-tight bun, and her smile was a thin red line of painted-on professionalism that didn't quite reach her eyes. Today that smile was gone. Sarah's day had been a nightmare. Her commute from Long Island was a 2-hour gridlock. Her normal crewmate had called in sick, replaced by a 20-something new hire who seemed to think the job was a travel vlog. A passenger on the previous flight had spilled a full Bloody Mary on her, and she hadn't had time to change her blouse, only sponge it down, leaving a faint, sour smell of tomato juice and cheap vodka that she was paranoid everyone could smell. And then she'd had a screaming match with the gate agent who had allowed an excessive number of pre-boards, throwing off her entire service timeline. She was stressed, she was angry, and she was running on 3 hours of sleep and a quart of bad coffee. As she marched through the cabin, her eyes landed on seat 4B. She saw a young black man in a hoodie. In her premium cabin. He hadn't just boarded with a hoodie, he was wearing it like he was in a gym. He had his large, expensive-looking headphones on. She didn't notice they were around his neck and was tapping away at a laptop, his shoes still on. One leg bounced nervously. Sarah's mind, clouded by fatigue and frustration, made a series of instant toxic calculations. He's a rapper, or an athlete, got more money than sense, probably got upgraded on miles and thinks he owns the place. He's the type to be demanding, to ask for endless Jack Daniels, to hit on the new hire. Her lip curled. She had no time for this. She had a manifest to check a cabin to secure. She stormed over to him, her heels clicking aggressively on the galley floor. "Sir!" she snapped. Marcus looked up, startled from his deep read of ice core data. He pulled his headphones completely off. "I'm sorry. Your laptop, it needs to be stowed. We're preparing for departure." Her voice was a razor. Marcus blinked, looking at the cabin. People were still boarding. The door was wide open. "Oh, of course. I thought we still had a few." "The rules are the rules, sir. Laptop stowed. Now." Marcus, a man who had been raised in a world of quiet, respectful debate, felt a small prickle of annoyance. But he was a guest here. "No problem." He began to save his document. But his phone buzzed again. It was a text from his father. A critical one. "Forgot. The fuel data is embargoed until 9 a.m. London. Do not show slide 14 until you get the all clear." This was bad. Slide 14 was a cornerstone of his presentation. "Oh, shoot," Marcus muttered, typing a rapid reply. "Dad, which dataset can I use as a backup?" "The no-air figures." Sarah watched him. He had ignored her. After she had just given him a direct instruction, he had pulled out his phone. The snap was coming. The tinderbox was lit. The air in the cabin crackled, and Sarah Jenkins felt a hot, dark wave of indignation rise up from her sensible shoes. "I am not going to tell you again," she said, her voice dangerously low. Marcus looked up his phone, still in his hand. He saw Sarah's face no longer professionally terse, but actively furious. Her skin was splotchy and red, her blue eyes narrowed to slits. "I do apologize," Marcus said, holding up a hand, a gesture of peace. "I just got a critical message. I'm putting it away right now. See?" He was about to hit the power button. "I don't care what it is," Sarah hissed. The passenger in 3B, a corporate lawyer named David Weissman, looked over the top of his Wall Street Journal. He could feel the tension ratcheting up. "Ma'am, I understand," Marcus said, his voice dropping into that deep, calm register he used when his father was on a rampage about stock prices. "I am complying. There is no need to raise your voice." It was the worst possible thing he could have said. To Sarah, his calm was not calm. It was arrogance. It was the entitlement she'd been stereotyping him with from the moment she saw his hoodie. He was telling her how to do her job. He was calm-splaining to her. "I'll tell you what, there's a need for young man." She spat the words young man, loaded with a freight train of racial and class-based condescension. "There's a need for you to respect the flight crew and follow federal aviation regulations. Or do you think the rules don't apply to you in this cabin?" A few more heads turned. The young flight attendant Chloe, who was stocking the galley, froze. Marcus sighed. He was done. This was ridiculous. He wasn't going to be spoken to like a child. He turned away from her, powered down his phone, and began to slip it into his hoodie pocket. Sarah saw the movement not as compliance, but as the final act of defiance. He was hiding it from her. He was ignoring her. I said, "Now." Her hand shot out. It was a reflexive, thoughtless movement born of pure rage. She wasn't thinking about her job, her mortgage, or the 25 years she'd spent building her seniority. She was thinking only that this arrogant kid was not going to get the last word. She grabbed for the phone. Marcus, an athlete in high school, had quick reflexes. He pulled his hand back instinctively. "Do not touch my property," he said, his voice no longer calm but cold. Sarah's hand, meant to grab the phone, met only air. Her momentum, fueled by her fury, carried her forward. She felt defied. She felt humiliated. He had pulled back. He had challenged her. And she slapped him. It wasn't a tentative tap. It was a full, open-palmed backswing and follow-through crack. Her rings a simple gold band and a modest diamond connected with the sharp line of his cheekbone. The sound was shockingly loud in the enclosed space. It was a pop like a champagne cork, but with none of the celebration. The cabin went utterly, completely silent. The hum of the auxiliary power, the distant clatter of luggage. Even the boarding announcements from the terminal seemed to fade away. Marcus Thorne sat frozen. His head was snapped to the side from the force of it. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He didn't move. A single slow drop of blood welled up on his lip where her ring had cut him. He turned his head back slowly. He looked at Sarah Jenkins. His eyes were not angry. They were not hurt. They were empty. It was the look of a scientist observing a specimen, a look of cold, profound, and sudden understanding. Sarah stood there, her hand still raised, slightly tingling from the impact. Her mind was a blank white screen. What did I just do? The thought was a tiny scream in a vast, empty canyon. "Oh, my God," whispered Chloe from the galley. David Weissman in 3B. The lawyer had already pressed record on his phone, which he'd been holding under his newspaper. He had the whole thing. The audio was crystal clear. Sarah's face, which had been red with rage, was now draining to a ghostly mottled white. You were non-compliant." She stammered the words hollow. Marcus said nothing. He slowly, deliberately reached into his pocket. Sarah flinched. She actually flinched as if expecting a weapon. He pulled out a clean white handkerchief monogrammed RT, a gift from his father, who believed in old-world affectations. He pressed it to his lip, which had begun to swell. He looked at the red smear. Then and only then did he speak. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the cabin like a surgical laser. "You are going to regret that," he said. It wasn't a threat. It was a balance sheet. It was a statement of fact. At that moment, the captain, a silver-haired veteran named Captain Miller, emerged from the cockpit, holding a printout. "Why are we stopped?" he boomed. "Sarah, why isn't this cabin—" He stopped. He saw the faces of the passengers pale and shocked, all staring. He saw Chloe, her hand over her mouth. He saw Sarah, looking like she'd just seen a ghost. And he saw the young man in 4B holding a bloody handkerchief to his face. "What in the hell," Captain Miller said, "is going on here?" The silence that followed Captain Miller's question was heavier than the 707 they were sitting in. Every passenger in the cabin was an unwilling actor in a play they hadn't auditioned for. Sarah Jenkins, her mind snapping back from the white fog of panic, did the only thing she could think to do. She went on the offensive. It was a desperate, fatal error. "Captain, thank God," she said, her voice shaking but finding its footing in self-righteousness. This passenger, he was non-compliant with FAA regulations. He refused to stow his electronic devices. He was aggressive. He threatened me. I felt unsafe. A low murmur rippled through the cabin. "A lie," hissed a woman in 5G. Captain Miller looked at Marcus. His eyes, trained by 30 years of flying, were assessing. He saw the kid in the hoodie. He saw the bloody handkerchief. He saw a problem that was keeping his flight on the ground. "Son," Captain Miller said, his voice a paternal rumble. "Is that true? Did you threaten my crew?" Marcus slowly lowered the handkerchief. He met the captain's gaze. "Captain," he said, his voice steady, "I did not threaten anyone. Your flight attendant, Miss—" He glanced at her name tag. "Ms. Jenkins was behaving in an erratic and aggressive manner. I was complying with her instructions when she attempted to snatch my personal property. When I pulled away, she assaulted me." "He's lying!" Sarah shrieked, her professionalism shattering into 1,000 pieces. He's trying to get something a free." "That's enough, Sarah," Captain Miller snapped. The hysteria in her voice was all the proof he needed. "Go to the aft galley. Now. Chloe, you're on lead." "But Captain—" "Now, Sarah, go." Defeated, humiliated, and terrified Sarah. Jenkins turned and made the walk of shame down the aisle, the eyes of every passenger burning into her back. Captain Miller turned back to Marcus. "Sir, I apologize on behalf of the airline. Are you injured? Do you need medical?" "I am fine," Marcus said, "but I am not fine. I have been assaulted. I understand. We will of course compensate you for this. We can offer, 50,000 AAdvantage miles, a full refund." Marcus almost laughed. It was a bitter, cold sound. "Captain, I am not interested in miles. I am interested in justice. You need to call the Port Authority police." The captain's face went grim. "Sir, if we do that, we delay the flight. We'll have to deplane everyone. It's a major incident." "It is already a major incident," Marcus said, his voice hardening. "You can either call them or I will. And if you try to deplane me, as I suspect you are thinking of doing, this incident will become the single biggest mistake of your career. I am an executive platinum member. I have a confirmed ticketed seat, and I have been attacked by your employee. I am not moving." The captain was stuck. This kid. He spoke with an authority that didn't match his hoodie. "Sir, please," the captain hedged. Let's get to London. We can file all the reports there. I'll have her removed from service for the rest of the flight. You won't even see her." "No," Marcus said. "The crime was committed here in New York, on the ground at JFK. It will be handled here." He saw the captain's hesitation. He saw the man calculating. The cost of the delay, the paperwork, the union reps. He saw the system of, let's make this go away, kicking into gear. And Marcus Thorne decided to shut that system down. He pulled his phone back out. His thumbprint opened it. The captain's eyes widened. "Sir, you can't—" "Watch me," Marcus said. He hit a single number on his favorites list. It rang once. "Dad?" The captain's heart sank. "Dad? Who calls their dad son? I thought you were—" "I'm still on the ground at JFK, Dad. Something's happened. Flight AA-100. Marcus's voice was low, fast, and precise. He was no longer a 22-year-old student. He was Robert Thorne's son. "I've been assaulted by a flight attendant. Yes, she slapped me. Yes, I'm bleeding. No, I'm fine. But they're trying to sweep it. The captain wants to take off." He listened for a moment. "Yes, American, AA-100, JFK, Terminal 8, Gate 42. Her name is Sarah Jenkins." He listened again. "I know. No, I don't need that. I need you to call him." "Yes. The General Counsel. Tell him to call Robert Isom's office." Captain Miller's blood turned to ice. Robert Isom was the CEO of American Airlines. "Tell him," Marcus continued, his eyes locking on the captain's, "that the Thorne Dynamics corporate account is under immediate review. And tell him that if this plane gets the clearance to push back from this gate before the Port Authority police arrive, Thorne Dynamics will terminate its $1.2 billion a year contract with the One World Alliance, effective immediately." He paused. "I know, Dad. I'll be fine. Just make the call, and call our legal team. I want them here. At the gate. 20 minutes. Marcus hung up the phone. He looked at Captain Miller, who was now the color of old oatmeal. "I believe," Marcus said, his voice flat, "you have a call to make to the tower. This flight is going to be delayed." Before the captain could even move, his own secure phone, clipped to his belt, buzzed with a ferocity he had never heard. It was the direct line from AA Flight Operations. He answered it. "This is Captain Miller." He didn't speak. He just listened. His face went from pale to white to a sickening greenish-gray. "Yes, sir," he said, his voice a croak. "I understand, sir. No, sir. It won't. I understand. Yes, I'm looking at him right now." "Yes, sir." He hung up. He looked at Marcus Thorne, no longer seeing a kid in a hoodie, but the living, breathing embodiment of a corporate nuclear bomb. "The Port Authority," the captain said, his voice hollow, "is on its way. We are returning to the gate. We will be deplaning." "Thank you, Captain," Marcus said, and he leaned his head back, closing his eyes, the adrenaline finally hitting him, his cheek throbbing in time with his heartbeat. The system was in motion. For the passengers, the next 10 minutes were a blur of confusion. The jet bridge reattached with a heavy final thud. The captain's voice came over the PA, strained and formal. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Due to, an unforeseen security issue, we will be returning to the gate and deplaning all passengers. We apologize for the delay. We will have more information for you in the terminal. All cabin crew will please disarm doors and cross-check." The system of a transatlantic flight, the smooth-oiled machine of getting 200 people from A to B, had just been shut down. In the AA Operations Center at DFW, and in the local operations tower at JFK, it was pure chaos. A code red alert had flashed on the screen for AA-100. Do not move aircraft. Hold for CEEO. A call from Robert Isom's personal office. A call that had taken exactly 45 seconds to happen after Robert Thorne hung up with his son, had vaporized all normal procedure. The system of escalation of paperwork of "we'll look into it" was bypassed. A multi-billion-dollar corporate account was at stake. A simple assault on a plane had just become a 5-alarm fire at the highest levels of the corporation. As the passengers filed off, they all glanced at 4B. Marcus sat quietly waiting. He was the last to leave. As he stepped into the jet bridge, 2 Port Authority police officers were waiting. "Mr. Thorne," one asked. "Yes," Marcus said. "This way, sir. We need to take your statement." A third officer was waiting for Captain Miller. "Captain, we need your lead flight attendant, Ms. Jenkins." "She's in the aft galley," Miller muttered, feeling his 30-year career flash before his eyes. The officers boarded. They found Sarah Jenkins sitting on a jump seat, weeping. "Ma'am," the officer said, not unkindly, "you need to come with us." "It wasn't my fault," she cried. He, "Ma'am, let's take this to the station, please." As Sarah was escorted off the plane, her walk of shame was now a perp walk. The passengers in the gate area saw it, and they all had their phones out. The first videos were already hitting Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Flight attendant slaps passenger at JFK. American Airlines Hamburg Slapgate. Karen on AA-100. In the terminal, a new system was forming. A gate agent, her face a mask of panicked efficiency, was at the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, Flight 100 has been cancelled." A groan went through the crowd. "We are rebooking all passengers. Please form a line. For our, business class and executive platinum members, please see my colleague Mr. Harris by the window." Marcus, flanked by his 2 officers, walked past the line. David Weissman, the lawyer from 3B, broke from the crowd and intercepted him. "Mr. Thorne," Weissman said, handing him a business card. "David Weissman. I was in PB. I saw the whole thing. I also filmed the whole thing, high definition, with clear audio. Here is my card. My recording is your property free of charge. Consider it a professional courtesy." Marcus looked at the man. "Thank you, Mr. Weissman. I will be giving your card to my legal team." "Legal team?" Weissman raised an eyebrow. At that moment, 2 men in $5,000 Zegna suits power-walked into the gate area, looking wildly out of place. "Marcus," one called. "Over here," Marcus said. The men, the top local counsel for Thorne Dynamics, rushed over. "Are you okay?" "We came as soon as we got the call. The car is waiting." "I'm fine, Alan," Marcus said. "I need you to speak with Mr. Weissman. He's a witness. He has a video." Alan, the lawyer, turned to Weissman, and his entire demeanor changed. "Alan Jacobs, counsel for the Thorne family. Let's talk." Thorne family. Weissman's eyes went wide. He hadn't just witnessed an assault. He'd just witnessed the career suicide of a flight attendant on the son of Robert Thorne. Meanwhile, the system of American Airlines public relations was in full panicked meltdown. The videos were spreading. The system of plausible deniability, "we are investigating the incident," was failing. Robert Isom, the CEO, was on a video call with Robert Thorne. The call was not a negotiation. "Robert," Thorne's voice was a polar ice cap. "I am looking at a video of your employee assaulting my son. My son, who is a non-confrontational, polite young man. My son, who is one of your highest-tier customers. This is not a customer service issue, Robert. This is a corporate culture issue. You have a violent, prejudiced employee who you allowed near my family. Robert, I am appalled, Isom said, and he meant it. He was appalled at the act, but mostly appalled at the billions of dollars in revenue that were now evaporating. The employee she is being removed from service. We are cooperating fully with the port. Cooperating is the minimum, Thorne cut him off. I want her gone, not suspended, not pending investigation. I want her fired, by end of business. I want a public apology not to me, but to my son. And I want a full top-to-bottom review of your diversity and de-escalation training with a report sent to my desk. Or I am moving Thorne Dynamics and all of its subsidiary-related travel to Delta. And I will personally call my friend Ed Bastian and tell him why. The system of employee protection union rules and 25-year seniority just died. Sarah Jenkins, sitting in the fluorescent-lit Port Authority station at JFK, had no idea. She was still trying to find her union rep. She was still operating under the assumption that this was a he said, she said situation. She didn't know that the system she had relied on her entire life, the rules, the seniority, the us versus them of the airline industry, had been completely and totally shut down by one call from one man to another. The cancellation of AA-100 was just the beginning. The shockwave was just starting to spread. The Port Authority station in Terminal 8 was a small, windowless box designed for maximum discomfort. Sarah Jenkins sat on a hard plastic bench, a cup of styrofoam-tasting coffee untouched in her hand. For 2 hours, she had been waiting. Her initial hysterical panic had faded, replaced by a sullen, defensive anger. They can't do this, she thought. I'm a 25-year veteran. He was non-compliant. The union will protect me. Finally, a detective, a weary-looking man named Diaz, called her into a small interrogation room. Ms. Jenkins, thanks for waiting. I want to speak to my union rep, Sarah said immediately, her voice sharp. You're free to do that, Diaz said, sitting down. You're not under arrest if that's what you're worried about. Not yet. I just want to understand what happened, in your own words. Sarah launched into her story. She painted a picture of a chaotic cabin and a young, arrogant passenger. He was on his phone. He refused a direct, lawful crew instruction. He got in my face. I felt threatened. I pushed him away. That's all. I just pushed him. Detective Diaz listened patiently, not taking a single note. When she was finished, he just sighed. You pushed him, huh? Yes, in self-defense. Diaz nodded. He pulled out his personal cell phone. He turned it around on the table. This is a public TikTok, Ms. Jenkins. Posted about 90 minutes ago. 1.2 million views. Is this you? He hit play. The video was from 3B. It was David Weissman's. It was crystal clear. It wasn't the blurry, shaky cam footage she'd been hoping for. It was high definition. And the audio. The audio was like a courtroom transcript. The video showed Marcus calm. It showed her screaming. It showed her voice, I said, now. It showed her lunge. It showed Marcus pulling back. It showed her hand, her rings, and the crack as it connected with his face. The video was 30 seconds long. It was the end of her life. Sarah stared at the phone. There was no sound in the room, but the whir of the ventilation. This is... She couldn't find the words. It's edited. It's out of context. We have 6 more, Diaz said, his voice flat. All from different angles, all showing the same thing. You, ma'am, committed simple assault in front of about 30 witnesses. He leaned forward. Now here's the part you're not understanding. We've been getting calls, a lot of calls, from upstairs, way upstairs. The door opened, and a man in a crisp AA uniform, a high-level base manager named Frank, walked in, followed by a frantic-looking woman. Sarah. My God, the woman said. It was her union rep, Karen. Not that Karen, but the irony was thick. Karen, thank God. Sarah cried, a new surge of hope. You have to help me. They're twisting. Shut up, Sarah. Karen whispered, her eyes wide with terror. Just don't say another word. Frank, the AA manager, looked like he was about to be physically ill. He wouldn't make eye contact with Sarah. Detective, Frank said to Diaz. Ms. Jenkins is an employee of American Airlines. We are. Not anymore, she's not. Frank said, his voice a miserable monotone. Sarah's blood went cold. What? Frank finally looked at her. His eyes were devoid of pity. Sarah, as of 20 minutes ago, by direct order from corporate headquarters in Dallas, your employment with American Airlines is terminated, effective immediately, for gross misconduct and violation of company policy. What? Sarah shrieked, jumping up. You can't. The union. The contract, I'm suspended pending investigation. That's the rule. The rules changed, Sarah. Karen, the union rep, said, her voice shaking. The system just, it's not working. What are you talking about? Sarah, Karen said, taking a deep breath. The man you slapped, the passenger. Do you know who he is? Some kid, a rapper I don't know. He's Marcus Thorne. The name meant nothing to Sarah. Who? His father from? Frank said, his voice cracking, is Robert Thorne, of Thorne Dynamics. A flicker of recognition. Sarah read Forbes. She'd seen the world's richest lists. Thorne, number 7. Self-made, green tech, reclusive, powerful. Robert Thorne, Frank continued, was the signatory on our single largest corporate travel account, an account worth to this airline over $1 billion a year. And you slapped his son. Over a cell phone. The room began to spin. The walls were caving in. The union can't, Sarah pleaded, turning to Karen. Can't what, Sarah? Karen said, her voice rising in frustration. Fight this or we'd be laughed out of arbitration. There's video. There are 30 witnesses. You didn't just break the rules, you set the rule book on fire. They're calling it an act of corporate self-sabotage. They're talking to legal about revoking your pension. My pension, that was it. That was her life, her 25 years. Detective Diaz, Frank said, turning his back on her. American Airlines will cooperate in any way necessary. We will be providing the full passenger manifest, all video evidence, and Ms. Jenkins's full employee file to your district attorney. She is no longer in our employ, or on our property. Her security access is revoked. He walked out. Frank, Sarah screamed. Frank, you can't. I'm sorry, Sarah, Karen said, backing out. There's nothing I can do. You're on your own. My advice. Get a criminal lawyer, a good one. The door shut, leaving Sarah alone with Detective Diaz. So, Diaz said, pulling out a small notepad. Let's try this again. This time, without the self-defense part. Sarah Jenkins finally understood. The system, she had trusted the seniority, the union, the rules was a house of cards. And she had just assaulted the one man who, with a single phone call, could blow it all down. She was no longer Sarah Jenkins, 25-year veteran flight attendant. She was Sarah Jenkins' defendant. Marcus was not in a police station. He was in the penthouse suite of the St. Regis, New York, a suite that had been booked by his father's chief of staff before Marcus had even finished his statement. The system worked differently for him. He was standing by the window looking down at the lights of Fifth Avenue. A doctor, the Thorne family's private physician, had already been looked at his face and declared him perfectly fine, if a little bruised. The cut was superficial. He wasn't fine. He felt hollow. The door opened and Robert Thorne walked in. He wasn't in a suit. He was in jeans and a dark cashmere sweater, having flown in on his personal Sikorsky from his Connecticut estate. He said nothing. He just crossed the room, pulled his son into a tight, powerful hug, and held him. "Are you okay, son?" Robert asked, his voice low. "I'm fine, Dad," Marcus whispered into his father's shoulder. "It's just, I'm so tired of this." Robert pulled back his eyes, the same eyes as Marcus's, sharp and intelligent, scanning his son's face. He gently touched the cut on his lip. "I know," Robert said. "This wasn't about a phone, was it?" "No." Marcus said, his voice quiet. "She didn't see me. She saw a type. She saw a young black man in her precious cabin, and she just snapped. It's not the first time I've been seen that way, Dad. It's the first time it was on camera, and the first time I had the call." This was the twist. The story wasn't about a rich kid getting revenge. It was about a young black man who, for the first time in his life, had the overwhelming, undeniable power to make the system of bias and prejudice accountable. He had a resource that millions of others who looked just like him and suffered the same indignities daily did not. "You did the right thing, Marcus," Robert said. "You used the tool you had. You shut it down." "I know," Marcus said. "But what about the next guy?" "The one who doesn't have the call." Robert Thorne smiled. A cold, dangerous smile. "That," he said, "is where we shut down the rest of the system." Meanwhile, in a small two-bedroom Cape-style house in Massapequa, Long Island, Sarah Jenkins was walking in her front door. It was 3 a.m. She hadn't been arrested. The DA was filing the charges in the morning, but she was out. And she was toxic. Her husband Mark was waiting in the living room, his face pale. The TV was on, muted. It was CNN. And her face, a grainy screenshot from one of the videos, was on the screen. "Mark," she whispered. "What did you do, Sarah?" He asked, his voice a dead monotone. "What in the hell did you do?" It was a mistake. He provoked me." "A mistake?" Mark let out a high-pitched, hysterical laugh. "A mistake is forgetting to take the garbage out. You're the #1 trending topic on Twitter." AA Karen. "Slapgate. They're doxing us, Sarah. Our address is on 4chan. Our address." Sarah felt her knees buckle. I lost my job, Mark." "Your job?" he said, his voice distant. "Oh, Sarah, we've lost a lot more than your job." What do you mean?" Mark walked over to his laptop, which was open on the dining room table. He turned it around. It was an email. "I got this," he said, "at 7 p.m., 2 hours after you were terminated." Sarah read it. It was from his employer, a mid-sized logistics company that managed shipping for specialty tech components. Dear Mr. Jenkins, due to a sudden and unforeseen restructuring of our primary client contracts, your position along with the entire Eastern Seaboard Division has been made redundant, effective immediately. I don't understand, Sarah whispered. I didn't either, Mark said, his voice dead. So I called my boss, Frank. He was crying. He got laid off, too. He said our biggest client, our only real client, just terminated their contract. No warning. Pulled it. Cited a breach of moral confidence clause. Cost the company 90% of its revenue in one email. Who? Sarah asked, but she already knew. She knew the way you know a train is coming. Thorn Dynamics, Mark said. Our company's biggest contract was with Thorn Dynamics. They're reviewing all their supply chain partners, they said. It's unrelated, they said. Mark looked at his wife. The woman he had known for 20 years. He no longer recognized her. You, he said, his voice shaking with a new cold fury. You didn't just get fired. You didn't just get us doxxed. With one stupid racist act, you bankrupted my company. You got me fired. You got Frank fired. You got 100 people in my division fired. This was the system shut down. It wasn't just Sarah's world. It was the system of her entire life. Her job, her pension, her husband's job, her home's safety, her anonymity. The hard karma wasn't just a lost job. It was a societal and economic erasure. Sarah Jenkins sank to the floor. The sound of the CNN report filtering in her own face, staring back at her, a silent, damning witness. She had made one call, one slap, one assumption. He had made one call, and the system, the entire system, had shut her down. 6 weeks. In the lifespan of a corporate scandal, it was an eternity. For Sarah Jenkins, it was a free fall in slow motion. A fall that ended abruptly on a hard, polished wood bench in the Queens County Criminal Court. The room was a media circus, but a quiet one. This wasn't a celebrity trial. It was a public execution. The air was thick with the silent, rapid click, click, click of reporters typing on their phones. Sarah sat next to a court-appointed lawyer, a young man with a cheap suit and a look of profound resignation. She herself was a ghost, a hollowed-out woman in a shapeless black pantsuit she'd bought at a discount store. Her hair, no longer in its regulation bun, was lank and lifeless. Her husband, Mark, was not there. He had filed for divorce 3 weeks prior, citing irreconcilable differences and extreme personal duress. He was at that moment in a job interview for a junior logistics position in another state, a job that paid less than half his former salary. The 300 employees of his former division were all in similar or worse positions. The system shut down had been a tidal wave, and Sarah was just the pebble that started the avalanche. In the matter of the people versus Sarah Jenkins, the clerk droned. On one count of assault in the 3rd degree, how do you plead? Sarah's lawyer nudged her. She stood, her knees shaking. Guilty, Your Honor, she whispered. The word was a dry cough, sucked up instantly by the courtroom's sound-dampening panels. The judge, a formidable woman, named Alani Williams, peered down from the bench. Miss Jenkins, she said, her voice a sharp, clear instrument. This is not a complicated case. In my 20 years on the bench, I have seen he said, she said cases by the 1,000. This was not one of them. She held up a printout. This, she said, is a transcript from the state's primary evidence, a video viewed to date 84 million times. It is a video of you, an agent of a commercial airline, in a position of authority, committing an unprovoked act of violence against a passenger. It is not just an assault, Ms. Jenkins. It is a profound, grotesque abuse of power. The very power you thought you were protecting. Sarah stared at her hands. The numbness was total. This system of justice was as cold and impersonal as the one she had served. Because of your guilty plea, the judge continued, which I can only assume is because any trial would be a 10-minute formality, this court is prepared to sentence you. You are hereby sentenced to 2 years of probation. You will pay a fine of $5,000, and you will perform 500 hours of community service. The judge paused, letting the sentence hang in the air. And be clear, Miss Jenkins, you will not be sorting cans. Your 500 hours will be served directly at the Racial Justice Advocacy Center at the LaGuardia Community College in Queens. You will be filing their paperwork. You will be cleaning their floors. You will be listening to the stories of the very people you and so many like you prejudge every single day. She leaned forward. Furthermore, you are mandated to attend and complete an 18-month court-monitored program for both anger management and implicit bias counseling. You will learn, Ms. Jenkins, what you so clearly failed to see. You are adjourned. Wait for the prosecution. A collective exhale. But the show wasn't over. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, standing. The victim, Mr. Marcus Thorne, wishes to make a statement to the court. A new surge of energy. Phones were raised. Sarah, who had been slumping in relief, froze. He was here. The side door opened. Marcus Thorne walked in, flanked by Alan Jacobs, his lawyer. He was not wearing a hoodie. He was in a perfectly tailored dark charcoal suit. His face was clean-shaven, the small cut on his lip now a faint white scar, a permanent souvenir. He looked like the one thing Sarah had never for 1 second considered him to be, a man of immense quiet and terrifying power. He walked to the podium, not looking at her. He addressed the judge. Thank you, Your Honor. Judge Williams. His voice was deep, steady, and unamplified, yet it filled the room. The last 6 weeks have been educational. He paused, and for the first time he turned his head and looked directly at Sarah Jenkins. She flinched physically, as if expecting another blow. When Miss Jenkins slapped me, he said, his voice dropping, it wasn't just the physical impact that I remember. It was the clarity. In that 1 second, I understood exactly what had happened. This wasn't a stressed-out employee losing her cool. This was a system of prejudice, a personal, ingrained bias, finding its one and only permitted outlet, violence, against someone she had already judged, tried and convicted in her own mind. She didn't see a passenger. She didn't see a 22-year-old student, or a son, or even just a customer. She saw a symbol. She saw a hoodie in a section where she believed hoodies don't belong. She saw a young black man, and her mind, trained by a lifetime of stereotypes, saw a threat to her order. And she acted on it. He turned back to the judge. This happens every day, Your Honor. It happens in stores. It happens in job interviews. It happens during traffic stops. The only difference between my story and 1,000 others is what happened next. The reporters were hanging on every word. I had a privilege, Marcus said, his voice ringing with conviction. A privilege that on that day had nothing to do with my skin color and everything to do with my last name. I had a resource that most do not. I had the call. I had the ability to dial one number and activate a system of power greater than the system of prejudice that was attacking me. I could make the entire world stop and listen. He took a breath. American Airlines and my family have reached a civil settlement for the damages caused by this incident. The terms are confidential. A low groan from the press. But, Marcus continued, that money, it's not my money. In my view, it's not even my family's money. It is money that was generated by an act of bias, so it will be used to fight bias. He looked out at the entire courtroom, at the reporters at the system. Today my father and I are formally announcing the formation of the Call Fund. The room was utterly silent. It is a 501c3 non-profit rapid response legal aid foundation. It is being seeded today with the entirety of the 8-figure civil settlement from the airline and a matching $10 million personal donation from Thorn Dynamics. Gasps. This wasn't just a statement. It was a financial broadside. We have established a hotline. Marcus explained, his voice gaining the cadence of a CEO, the man he was always meant to be. If you are a person of color, a member of the LGBTQ+ community, a person with a disability, a woman, or anyone from a marginalized group, and you are the victim of a provable discriminatory or biased act in a public commercial setting, an airport, a hotel, a restaurant, you call us, and we will provide immediate pro bono legal counsel. We will file the injunctions. We will contact the media. We will leverage our corporate partners. We will, in short, make the call for you. He looked back at Sarah, whose mouth was hanging open, her mind unable to process the scale of what was happening. Ms. Jenkins, he said, his voice no longer angry, but filled with a cold, profound pity. Your actions, your one moment of prejudice built this. You are our first unwilling donor. This is your legacy. This is the new system. We are turning a system of isolated privilege into a system of distributed justice. Thank you, Your Honor. He nodded once, turned, and walked out of the courtroom. He did not look back. The room exploded. Reporters scrambled for the doors. Judge Williams simply sat back, a small, stunned smile on her face. Well, she said to the empty room, I've seen it all. Sarah Jenkins was left in the debris. As her lawyer guided her out a different door, she was swarmed. The camera flashes were like punches. Ms. Jenkins, are you a racist? Sarah. What do you think of the Call Fund? Was it worth it? Sarah, was the slap worth your life? Are you responsible for 300 people at your husband's company losing their jobs? She couldn't speak. She just huddled, a meaningless, anonymous ghost, as her lawyer shoved her through the crowd to a waiting cab. Her karma wasn't just punishment. It was obsolescence. She was no longer the main character. She was a footnote in the story of the very fund she had helped create. Two months later, JFK Terminal 8, Marcus Thorne, in his grey hoodie and Nike runners, walked to the gate for the new rescheduled Flight 100 to London. The gate agent, a different woman, saw him approaching. Her eyes widened, not in suspicion, but in recognition. Mr. Thorne, she said, her voice a little too loud, a little too bright. It is a genuine pleasure to have you, sir. You are, of course, pre-boarded. Please go right ahead. Thank you. Marcus smiled his genuine, warm smile. I'm fine to wait for Group 1. No, sir. Please. We insist. He nodded understanding and walked down the jet bridge. At the door, the lead flight attendant, a man with silver hair, greeted him by name. Mr. Thorne, welcome aboard. A real honor. Your seat is 4B. Please let me know if there is anything, and I do mean anything I can do for you. Marcus settled in. He was once again the first person in the cabin. A moment later, a young, nervous flight attendant approached. It was Chloe. She was holding a bottle of Fiji water unopened. Mr. Thorne, she stammered, her hands trembling so badly the bottle rattled. He looked up from his phone, and his face broke into that same warm smile. Chloe, it's good to see you. How have you been? Tears instantly welled in Chloe's eyes. You remember me? Of course I do, he said, sitting up. You were kind. She exhaled a shaky 6-week-old breath. I brought you this. I remembered you asked for water. Thank you, he said, taking it. That's very thoughtful. I just... She stammered, wringing her hands. I have to tell you, I'm so sorry. For what happened. For just standing there. Knew I was, Chloe, he said, his voice gentle. It's okay. You did nothing wrong. But I wanted to thank you. She burst out, her voice a whisper. I almost quit after that day. I thought, this is what this job is, but you changed everything. What do you mean? The training, she said, her eyes bright. They brought us all in, a mandatory airline-wide retraining. It wasn't the old, boring video stuff. It was real. We spent 3 full days on de-escalation, conflict resolution, and implicit bias. Your name, well, your fund, is in the new company manual. It's a case study. You didn't just get her fired. You made the system better. For us, too. We're taught to see people now, not problems. Thank you. Marcus was silent for a long moment. He hadn't known. This was the system shut down. Not the call, not the firing, not even the fund. This. Thank you, Chloe, he said, his voice thick with emotion. That means more than you know. Thank you for telling me. She nodded, wiping a tear, and finally smiled. Enjoy your flight, Mr. Thorne. Truly. As the plane pushed back, Marcus Thorne settled into his seat. He pulled out his laptop. He wasn't reviewing his climate data. He was logged into the brand-new secure portal for the Call Fund. On his screen were the first 3 cases they had officially taken on. A Muslim family denied a table at a diner in Ohio with video. A transgender woman harassed and removed from a cross-country bus with audio. A disabled veteran denied entry to a grocery store with his service animal. Marcus read the intakes, a small, fierce smile on his face. He ceased his water. His presentation in London could wait. The real work was just beginning. So what's the real lesson here? It's easy to cheer when the Karen gets her karma. It's satisfying to see a bully get taken down, to see her entire world crumble because of one hateful, prejudiced act. But the real story, the real twist, isn't the shutdown. It's the reboot. Marcus Thorne had something 99.9% of us don't get-out-of-jail-free card for a system that's rigged against so many. But instead of just cashing in his own chips, he used the winnings to build a whole new table. A table for everyone else. He created the Call Fund. This story shows that true power isn't just about shutting your enemies down. It's about building a new system where they can't hurt anyone else ever again. What do you think? Was the karma too hard, or was it exactly what she deserved? What would you do if you had the call? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you loved this story, and you want to hear more dramas about karma power and the real-life twists that change everything, then you know what to do. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel and ring that bell. You don't want to miss what's coming next.